again, it's the final video of the week. I'm doing a TV show again this time. I did one with Deadwood. I'm going to do Homicide later on in the year as well. But for this one is Battlestar Galactica. So I thought it would be worthwhile doing a video on. The history of Battlestar Galactica was I watched the original as a child. Like I watched the old one with Dirk Benedict and Richard Hatch as a child. I had the movie versions like Mission Galactica, Silent Attack, and the original movie thing as well, which was taken from TV episodes. I had them in DVD and VHS. Then I saw that then finally they showed the original series again, and as well as Galactic 1980, which was the awful sequel. So I've seen them all. I got them all on DVD. I've got them again in Blu-ray. I know they're very flawed, but I have nostalgia to them. It's just the way it goes. You know, I can still happily watch them even though I know all the problems. But that's the way it goes. The remake came about in early 2000s, which I'd been following up on it because I was a fan of the original. And when it was finally made, I was curious and I actually managed to get this DVD of it, which had basically the pilot, the first 2-episode pilot. It was 4 hours long miniseries thing. So they actually put that out over here on DVD pretty quick after it was released in America and shown in America, which was quite smart of them. And they didn't make it that expensive, so I ended up buying it fairly cheap on release and watching it. So I became a big fan, so I was really interested in seeing where it went after that. Because it was the miniseries took basically the first half of the original pilot of the show, which was they call them there's a set of colonies that are wiped out by the Cylons, and there's a fleet with the Galactica who has to escape from the colonies, escape from the Cylons, and it kind of ends there, basically them escaping, you know. So it's all about the apocalypse and all about the end of a massive human society, and there's only a few of them left. So that's what the original had that, then they had this other plot that happened, the second half of that story, which kind of took away from the apocalyptic elements of the first half of the story. So it's kind of Star Wars rip-off elements to it. But there was other stuff there that wasn't Star Wars, so there was, I think the stuff that wasn't Star Wars made it interesting, the stuff that was Star Wars rip-off kind of dragged it down a little bit. And that was the problem, that was a tension throughout the series, but the series went on, they had a lot of other ideas to come into it. Some of them were good, some of them were trash, but they were enjoyable, you know, in a kind of silly sci-fi way of the 70s. Very 70s sci-fi, lots of bright colours, a lot of disco influence, you know. I loved it, a lot of Star Wars influence, I loved it, despite its flaws. So the TV show was much darker, it made the characters more serious, it changed genders of a few characters, and everyone was dysfunctional, no one got on, people had difficulty with each other, it was just a stressful situation even before the apocalypse happened, and the people were just trying to survive. And now the Cylons looked like people as well, which meant no one could tell who was a Cylon, who was human. So you had that kind of thing, paranoia going on in it as well. Then after the mini-series, they got a limited series run of 13 episodes for the first series. And I watched all of them quite very happily. We got them before America in that one, we got them in Sky, and I watched them in Sky as they came out. So I was very happy to be ahead of America with that. The first series really built upon the original mini-series more than anything from the old show, and it threw out the stuff that didn't work so well, and it stuck to what was good, and it became a show about military and under stress, as the military had to protect humans. Your government under stress because they'd limited people there, and they had to try and protect them, but also go on with the military who were protecting them, and sometimes both sides weren't going to get on well because they had different views, and you had people in the middle of it who saw that's a good idea, how do we do a compromise that will help everyone. So see, certain characters that would come through. You had Adama, who was the leader of the military side. You had Ty, who was his exo, who was an alcoholic. You had President Roslin, who's cancer, who was trying to lead the human race from the government side. You had Apollo, who was Lee Adama, who was Adama's son didn't know his dad very much. He was kind of in between the government and the military because he had sympathies on both sides. And he starbucked this woman who was the best pilot, but she was drunk and she had a lot of problems. And these dysfunctional characters became really interesting. And the flaws became fascinating, became a real benchmark for the show because people get injured and the injuries would last them like half a season. If someone blew up, they didn't have that anymore in the fleet, so they'd suddenly have if they lost some water, it means they'd have to find water in the universe, even though there was mostly blackness and very few planets. So they had to find water and stuff like that. So that became an issue that was any little thing that went wrong could take up like 2 or 3 episodes to fix because they had limited resources. They had to refine everything. They had to find food and grow food, and it was just like hell on earth basically. And that became the shows that these people surviving horrific things, dealing with tension between the government and the people. You had people like Zarek, who was played by Richard Hatch from the original, who was a political prisoner who was freed and who was now a kind of shady figure who had lots of good ideas but you couldn't quite trust him. And all these other people in the fleet that you had to deal with as well. Some of whom had legitimate concerns about how it had been run. So as the series went on and mistakes were made by the characters, tensions rose and rose and rose. And also the Cylons, who no one could tell who was a Cylon and who wasn't. So your best friend could be a Cylon for all you knew. And the Cylons were still attacking them with ships all the time. So it became this issue of outrunning them, you never really could. And so the series went on from that. After 13 episodes, left with a massive cliffhanger with the civilian fleet and the civilians in the military at each other's throats over decisions made. It came back for like a 22 episode run this time, or 20 episode run. So it was an extended run, and the series continued strength to strength. 20 episodes was too much for the show actually. I mean, it could have been 16 and have been fine because there was like 4 episodes in that run that wasn't as good. But this was the point where the military and the civilians started to actually get along better and realise they had to collaborate and deal with each other as humans rather than as figureheads, and they had to really have sympathy for the other person's opinion and actually learn to get on. And you'd actually start to see people you see their vulnerabilities, you see them evolving. They found that Battlestar called Pegasus that's actually run in a much more hardline way without any civilian fleet, and they are much more to survival and they are much more psychotic. It's almost like human beings. What happened if they're going to the worst instincts? And even as that happened, the Cylons started to evolve in their own society, and some of them thought that attacking the humans was a bad idea, and some of them said no, it was the best idea. And you saw how they evolved, how religious they were. They were into the idea of God as being on one, because the humans had like many gods and the Cylons had one god, so you had 2 different religions against each other, as well as the Cylons trying to find the meaning of life and trying to deal with what they'd done. So it became very complicated, the idea of does religion lead you to madness, and it became a complicated story. Something was too complicated, you couldn't wrap all this stuff up. It was something that people lived with and it evolved through time. There's never going to be a resolution that would satisfy everybody. That's what can happen in the 3rd season. The 3rd season, it became a story about people starting to deal with their faults much more head on, dealing with their mistakes, dealing with what they'd done in the past. Because at a certain point they actually find a place they could hide from the Cylons. They didn't have to run anymore. Cylons couldn't find them. It was behind this gassy area that the Cylons couldn't scan, so they could disappear for a while and the Cylons couldn't find them, and they could start their lives again and build the human race a bit more again. And it all goes to pot, obviously. The Cylons find them, they put them under occupation, eventually they escape, but all of this is like almost like living through the resistance in World War II, and like French resistance, where a lot of people compromised themselves, lots of bad decisions were made, and throughout the season that kept on going back, and people had to deal with the consequences of their actions and deal with the idea that a lot of the decisions were bad. And so that season became, it was less fun the first two seasons, but it was necessary because people were just dealing with bad decisions, and they were exhausted, and they had used up all of the reserves of emotion to try and get to this point, and people were just tired. They started building new lives with each other, but some of those lives, those marriages weren't working. People had jumped into marriages and jumped into relationships that weren't working for them. And it was just a difficult time for all the characters, and it was a very interesting season for that. And you get this idea of people finding out who they actually are, rather than who they think they are. So it became a complicated season. Same with the Cylons, they were starting to find out what they were, what they wanted, and it wasn't always what. And there were divergences around the Cylon race to who was what and who wanted what. Season 4 was the finale. They actually stopped this series when they'd ran out of material, where it was like, we have to end this because we don't want to have it go on forever and you never get a sense of resolution. So they actually, season 4 said, this is the final season, we have an ending plan, we're going to go for it. So season 4 is where you find out who all the Cylons are, and you had to, and some of them turned out to be important people in the story who thought they were human, and you started to, everyone had to kind of, after facing who they were, they had to move forward and try and make a life out of those situations and try and find a future. And because of that, people had different ideas in the future. There was a rebellion within the fleet of people coming rising up and saying, no, the military has gone too far, we're going to have to get rid of them because they're insane. That failed, but it showed up all the tensions that had been building for years. And they also they found a planet that they thought was Earth, that was, because they're looking for Earth, is the idea of Battlestar Galactica. Found a planet that had been nuked out of existence from their own people, and turns out it was the most down in middle mid-season finale ever, where they think they've found a place they're looking for, which is Earth, and it turns out it's a nuclear wasteland. That would have been an amazing end to the show, but it wasn't. Then finally, the finale really is about people learning to put all this stuff aside and just move on and just say, the Cylons and humans have to say, okay, we've destroyed each other, we've hunted each other down like crazy, we've done all this damage to each other, we have to find a way to get along, otherwise it's not going to work. And that was unsatisfying for some people, because people wanted a definite destruction of Cylons and humans are great, and it was like, no, that's not what it was, it's all about compromise. About people moving on, some people dying, some people making horrible mistakes, and eventually people find sort of peace and realising that none of them were perfect, but they'd all made horrible mistakes, and it's like, try and just work for the next generation. And there is a kind of peace eventually that's created, but it's a very, very difficult peace, and it's left within compromise and exhaustion, and people who have burnt out but who want to kind of still try and move on. So that's the whole point of the show, is moving on despite horrible situations repeatedly happening. And that's what's great about this show. It's actually took what was good about the original idea, which was people on the run from robots and trying to find a home, and eventually shows them find a home, but it's a very compromised home, and they've made lots of mistakes, and people who have done horrible things survive, and people who deserve to survive die, and you have to live with that. There's a character called Baltar in it who makes every bad decision possible, but he's not a malicious person, but he does everything he touches goes to shit. And by the end of it, he survives, and he finds a meaning to his life. And it's wonderful because you actually see some emotion from him. You see, like, he knows he should have died, but he didn't die. And he's trying to make the situation better. And you have other characters who do the same thing. There's other characters who you think would know better, who fell into darkness and caused havoc and died. And it's like, It's complicated like that. The full show's complicated. People make complicated decisions. And not all of it worked. Some of the religious things worked because it was about the complications of religion. A lot of times when they dealt with religion, the idea of prophecies and things, it was a bit too neat. And some of the answers weren't as satisfying as they could have been. But it doesn't really matter because most of the points were made well. It was just a couple of things didn't work. That's you get that in most art. There's always a couple of things that are niggly. It's like, nah, that didn't quite work. But the show was great. The performances were terrific. Like Mary McDonald from a lot of John Sayles films was Rosalind. Edward James Olmos was Adama. There's lots of interesting actors in the supporting parts. Dean Stockwell turned up as one of the Cylons. He was great. And it was just wonderful. It's a wonderful show. It's really worth seeing. I could talk about the whole thing because it's been out for 10 years, so I don't think there's any spoilers left for most people who've been interested in this video. And I haven't given away plot points, but given away the general structure of the story and what it meant, at least to me, and what I felt it meant. So I felt that was interesting doing a video on it. But it is a wonderful show. Even if you've seen it before, it's worth reviewing again, just looking over again. Because there's lots of scenes that are very ambiguous, very intriguing. You rewatch them and try and work out how you feel about them. There's lots of stuff like that. There's lots of bits that are never tied down to one interpretation. There's just lots of complicated things going on, and there's lots of decisions made that you thought you understood early, and it turns out you find out that there was other reasons for them later, and not all of that worked, but most of it did. And there's some wonderful set pieces and wonderful action, but the action is not important. The action is just, it sustains the story, pushes the story forward. But you get the wow moments every so often, but that's not the point. The story is of humans. It's the exact opposite of watching a Braveheart in the week, where it was everything, all the humanity was leading to the brutality. At this point, any brutality was pointing back to the humanity and the complications of humanity. That's what's great about this show. It's complicated, it's difficult. And I highly recommend it. So that's the last video of the week. I hope you enjoyed them all. I'll be back next week with some more videos, but hopefully you'll enjoy the image stuff I had from last week's videos. So I'll see how what the reaction is there as well. Okay, right, bye for now.